I'm Rebecca. I'm a foster care specialist with Skookum Kids. I'm here with Jamie and Chris to have an important conversation. They experienced their children being removed from their care, but more importantly, they successfully reunified with their children 2 years ago. Today, we're going to talk about some of their experiences, including their relationship with the foster parents of their children. Jamie and Chris, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So to start us off, what was going through your minds the first time you met the caregivers of your children?
It was relief. It had been a long time, and a lot of things went through our mind, anticipating meeting them.
You mentioned it had been a long time. How long was it?
It felt a lot longer than it probably was, about a year, give or take. It was really something that we had focused on from the beginning, felt it was really important. We had felt so disconnected from our children, not being a part of their lives, and it was something we had been pushing for a really long time. Being this was our first, experience in any type of situation like this, we weren't sure what to expect, and more of our information was divulged to the caregivers than was appropriate, and I felt like it was really difficult to be able to create a relationship with them, knowing what they knew, and they didn't need to know all that. They weren't seeing us as parents.
Yeah. So then knowing that, were you pretty scared to have that face-to-face with them?
I don't know if scared is the right word.
Nervous.
Yeah.
I was nervous.
She was more nervous than anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It had just been such a long time. It really just felt like it's about time. For me, the anxiety over it had abated months before. It was just really just felt like we were just waiting and waiting.
So tell me, I welcome both positive and negative about your experiences that you had with the foster parents of your children.
Rich and Katie were phenomenal, honestly. I mean, especially after we'd gotten a chance to meet each other, which is something that we'd discussed, and we knew that once we had a chance to sit down with them and start to dialogue with them, and they got a chance to experience us firsthand versus through collateral that they had received through or from CPS or social work, that things would be a lot different. But it's difficult when you're defined by paperwork and a narrative.
Absolutely.
Would you add anything to that, Jamie?
Our situation is unique in a lot of ways because everything's worked out beautifully. I know it doesn't always go that way. We definitely had our challenges throughout, but overall, it was a really great experience. I mean, something that, we are still friends with them, I would say, at this point. 2 years later, our kids play sports together, we're going to the birthday party this weekend. It's really special, and it was important to us that we keep that relationship with them for our children. We didn't want, they had all these traumas anyway associated with everything that was happening, and for them to be removed from us into their care and then back to us, we did not want that relationship to just be severed. It was really important to us that we continue that, and I feel like that's really important for the children.
Yeah. So you guys shared that it took a year or so maybe to meet the caregivers of your kiddos for the first time. How did your relationship go after kind of that first meeting? Like how was that relationship forged?
Well, it started with a weekly journal that we would send home with the kids after they'd have a sleepover with us. And I think that really broke the ice for them. It humanized us.
It was something we'd send back and forth, probably weekly. And it started off with just like notes from school, because I wanted to know what was going on with the kids and different things, how they were doing, who their friends were, just the stuff that parents know. But I feel like when it's removed, you don't realize all those little moments that are so important and pivotal in your child's life. And then the journal thing quickly switched over to email because it was easier. And so, not depending on a child to bring the notebook back and forth. But yeah, no, it was really great.
We couldn't have gotten more fortunate with a placement for our kids. It was effortless after that. They were really, really welcoming. They showed a lot of grace, which speaks really highly of them.
Yeah, that's amazing. What were key elements that contributed to your guys' success of reunifying with your children?
Well, we're whole humans, right? So we had a life before addiction and the obstacles that led up to the kids being removed from our care. So I don't know if it distinguishes us from other parents in a significant way, but we came into it with a set of skills that I don't know if a lot of other parents have. In the beginning, I told my attorney, David, that things weren't going to go for us the way that they typically go for most parents that he works with. And I feel like he looked at me and he's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. But we had some really powerful motivators in not having any experience like this before. We couldn't imagined approaching it any other way.
Yeah, it was incredibly eye-opening. I feel like a lot of parents, though, that do come into this situation, there's so many resources available to parents, and I know that it's a scary situation when they get into this, involvement with social workers and the system and stuff. But my biggest takeaway was that every service that we had, I just embraced and did the most I could and just took as much as I could out of it just to make myself a better parent, a better human, a better woman. I really wanted to come out on the other side of this together, stronger, better people than we were before, our addiction took us to where it did.
So you guys are a couple. You went through this foster care journey together. Do you think that made you guys stronger? What did that cause more trouble in your relationship, having kiddos removed and, working with the Department of Youth and Family Services? What did that look like?
Initially, it was really tough.
With the department?
Yeah, because they would serve to her these forms of emotional landmines, which were expressly like, hey, if you get rid of him, you will get your kids back sooner. But that message was implied. And for me, I saw it as what it was. And so it felt easier for me to identify, and they didn't say any of those things to me. So it was
not as easy for me to identify. I mean, they're playing with my emotions, very strongly, and he would be my voice of reason, like, listen, this is what they're doing, But I mean, as a couple, I believe that it made us stronger, like, throughout it. I don't know. We probably would have gotten through it individually, but together we were just that much stronger. And yeah.
It came close more than once, not because of any strain on us, but more or less, I would look at it from like a macro perspective and be like, okay, am I being obstinate in a fashion, or is it really that we can do this together? And there was a period where I was prepared and I had a place picked out, got a dog for some company, to just say, okay, well, we'll do this and see what difference that it makes. But we ended up not having to go that route.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah, so are we.
Yeah, so are we. It just got to the point where the kids they wanted to come home. I mean, they wanted to come home the whole time, but we had finally gotten to a point in our life and our recovery where we were stable. We had a home and we were working, and the kids could see all these things being accomplished, and they couldn't understand, well, why are we still here? Why aren't we with you guys? And that was really hard. That was really hard on us. And so that is about the time, really, when we started getting closer to, Rich and Katie, and talking to them more. And I think we did do a couple phone calls, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just kind of helped the kids. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So kind of related to that, what did the reunification process look like for your family?
Very, very slow. Very slow.
Yeah.
It felt like we entered into a space where everyone was just in agreement that we were going to have to fight in court for every inch of progress that we got, no matter what our service performances look like, compliance with any of the provisions and any of those things. for the longest period, at least the first, I'd say, 3/5 of the process, were the biggest determinant was court proceedings, where we saw the most progress with visitation,
Yeah.
anything.
I mean, visitation was, we had a bumpy road in the beginning. We weren't with Skookum in the beginning. We were with a different agency. And that was interesting. She was great, but that was slow. And then it just, once we got with you guys, we were able to get definite visitation schedules set, because it was kind of hit or miss, and we weren't doing it together. They were making us do it separately, which was frustrating as well, because we wanted to do it as a whole family. And then once you guys took over, we were able to do that, and then it went to supervised, someone right here, and then a little bit more leeway, and then overnights. But it seems like when we hit overnights, it was quick. They were home quick, because it's overnights and we were there for a weekend. And thankfully, our social worker was awesome, and he really advocated for us to get our kids home before Christmas break so we could have them at home for Christmas. And so they came home the last day of school right before Christmas break. And I'm telling you, COVID hit then, and it was amazing that they were home. We were so fortunate that they were home through that.
We had a different experience with COVID than most other people do.
Yeah.
Or did, because we hadn't been with our kids for so long. We hadn't all been together for a while. So it was like, oh, stay at home? Cool, we got that.
Yeah,
We can do this.
yeah. It was great. It was a great time for us to reconnect as a family.
Yeah. How was that first Christmas? Like just weeks after being a family unit again?
It was amazing.
Yeah, you can't, there are no words to describe how it felt.
No, yeah, and it wasn't just us, our entire family was ecstatic, that the kids were home and stuff, and that they were going to be there.
What's one thing that you guys want prospective foster parents to know?
I think the main thing is that they remember that we're human. We are not the sum of our mistakes. We are not a piece of paper or what this case file says. We are someone's mom and dad. We're not drug addicts. We have the disease of addiction, but we're human.
Yeah, to dovetail off of that just a bit, the whole process can feel a lot like a test. So I think it's important to, as much as you need to, reframe your perspective on what the goal is for parents and what your role is as a foster parent. And it certainly shouldn't look or feel like continuing to move the goalposts and have parents meet you there and then say, well, that was satisfactory, but now let's try this task. It should never feel task-oriented, which is difficult because there's so many provisions that parents have to comply with and demonstrate progress through. But like she said, just we're whole human beings, and the goal isn't to keep a boundary between bio parents and their kids. It's reunification. Like that's essentially and categorically what you are defined as doing, is helping in that process. Well, of course, protecting the kids, but yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, you guys.
Yeah.
As demonstrated by our conversations today, the relationship between birth parents and foster parents isn't always an easy one, but it's incredibly important for the well-being of children. Chris and Jamie, thank you again for being here today and being vulnerable with me through sharing your stories.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.